I don't see the point in staying with you now that you're broke. That's what she said. No hesitation, no tears. Just zipped her suitcase like she was closing a file. I didn't argue, didn't beg. Just said, "Your call." My name is Eric Bannon, 41 years old, quantitative risk analyst. For over a decade, I made a living modeling volatility, forecasting crashes, hedging exposure, predicting the worst case before it happened. I missed one. The tumor pressing into my hippocampus didn't care about predictive models. They told me I had a window, 6 weeks, maybe less, before irreversible damage. The surgery wasn't optional, and it wasn't cheap. I emptied our savings, sold the backup car, cashed out my personal portfolio. She stared at the screen and asked, "So that's it? That's everything we have?" I said, "It's the only move that lets me keep working." She didn't answer. 4 weeks later, I was recovering at home, speech still slow, balance unsteady, my thoughts drifting in and out like static. She started finishing my sentences, correcting my calendar, rolling her eyes when I forgot the coffee filter or the day of the week. One morning, she looked at me like a project gone sideways and said it. "I didn't marry you to become your nurse, or your accountant." She meant it. Now she stood by the bedroom door, removing her wedding ring like it was a name badge. She tossed it on the dresser. No box, no goodbye. Next to it, a small cardboard tray. My keys, a charger, pain meds, watch. Dumped, not packed. A sticky note on top. "Don't forget your prescriptions." She wheeled the suitcase through the hallway without looking back, closed the door like it was a final verdict. I didn't follow. I sat on the edge of the bed. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was surgical. Every item she left behind felt like a severed connection. I moved slowly through the apartment. The kitchen smelled like reheated takeout and antiseptic wipes. I poured a glass of water. Forgot I'd already poured one. 2 identical glasses sat on the counter. I drank from neither. I microwaved leftovers. Let them go cold. Turned on the TV with the sound off. Flickering faces on the screen talked about things that no longer mattered. At some point, I collected what she'd left. The ring went into a drawer, the charger into a bag. The pain meds I kept on the table. I passed by our bookshelf. Something was off balance. I adjusted a leaning photo frame. The photo was of us, Paris, 5 years ago. I turned it face down. Then I saw it. On the lower shelf, black, dusty, dented. An old external hard drive. I stared at it. I'd forgotten it existed. 8 years ago, maybe more. I'd bought some Bitcoin, a few $100s. Out of curiosity. Back then it was like Monopoly money. I never moved it, never wrote down the password. Then the tumor took care of the rest. I picked it up, plugged it in. The light blinked once. Password field loaded. I stared. Nothing came. I got up, poured another glass of water, looked out the window. Street empty. One car idling at the light. Then it came. A word. One I hadn't used since college. A joke between me and a friend who now had 3 kids and a job in Wisconsin. I typed it. 1 beat. Another. Access granted. I didn't react. Didn't lean forward or widen my eyes. Just stared at the list of files. Behind me, the apartment creaked. Wind through the vents. The echo of a life interrupted. I left the drive plugged in. Walked to the living room. Turned off the TV. Folded the blanket she used. Set it aside. Laid down on the couch. Didn't cry. Didn't breathe deep. Just stared at the ceiling fan blades turning slow. Tomorrow I'd open the wallet file. But tonight I slept on the couch like a man who'd just lost everything, and wasn't sure yet what he'd found. We used to read together at night. Not on the couch. In bed. Same lamp. Same silence. I'd read some dense article about macro trends or derivatives. She'd fall asleep halfway through, pretending to follow along. Saturdays, I'd drive her to the small bookstore near our place. She liked the smell of paper. Said it calmed her. She'd browse for hours while I got us coffee and waited outside in the truck. We weren't dramatic. We weren't loud. But we were close. Or I thought we were. We made plans. Bigger apartment, maybe a kid. Not urgent, but we talked about it. At night, we'd argue about names like it was a debate show. She liked Greek names. I liked names with fewer vowels. We laughed a lot. I didn't think I was the emotional one. But I remember that phase clearly. The sense that we were good. The first time I forgot the oven was on, I blamed stress. Second time, I blamed the markets. By the fifth or sixth, I stopped making excuses. I'd lose track of things mid-sentence. Pause, trying to find the word. She'd complete it for me, gently. At first, then she started saying, "Are you even listening?" Or, "You just said that 2 minutes ago." The silences between us grew longer. She was still there, but a little colder, a little more distant. She started making decisions without me, ordering things, moving money between accounts, subtle things. I once caught her on a call with her sister. She said, "I can't keep carrying this alone. He forgets everything. I feel like I'm babysitting." I didn't say anything, just turned around and walked into the kitchen, stirred coffee that had already gone cold. When the headache started, I knew. One MRI later, I had the answer. Brain tumor. Aggressive but potentially operable. Time sensitive. The doctor laid it out flat. If I waited, I'd likely lose cognitive function permanently, within months. Possibly worse. We sat in the car afterward. She didn't cry, just stared out the windshield. I said, "There's a procedure. It's not cheap, but it could give us time." She stayed silent. I added, "It's our savings. I know. But I need to do this." She didn't respond right away, then said, "You really think this will fix you?" "It's the only shot I have." She didn't say no, just walked back inside. The next morning, I scheduled the surgery. We didn't talk about it again, not in detail. She kept the distance. No hospital bag packed, no hand held. The night before, she stood by the doorway as I checked in online. Her arms crossed. "You know," she said, "I didn't marry you to become your nurse, or your accountant." I looked at her. Noted. She turned and left the room. The morning of the surgery, I sat on the edge of the bed, alone. My phone buzzed with calendar reminders I couldn't follow anymore. I shut it off. As I reached into the drawer for my insurance papers, I saw it. The old black hard drive. Dusty. Heavier than I remembered. It took me a second to even recognize it. Years ago, back when crypto was a toy for nerds, I'd bought a few coins on a whim, just to understand how it worked. Saved the keys somewhere, then forgot. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands, didn't say a word. She stopped asking how I was, stopped coming to follow-ups, started calling it your recovery, like it was some solo project I invented. She'd bring home smoothies, but only one. Turn the TV up when I said I had a headache. Roll her eyes when I paused mid-sentence, searching for a word. "You already told me that," she snapped once, while I tried to explain the insurance forms. The tumor was gone. But the house? It had a draft now. A silence that wasn't quiet. It was withdrawal. I'd catch her staring at me. Not with worry. With calculation. Like she was trying to measure how much of me was left. One afternoon, I came out of the bedroom and found her on a video call. She didn't hear me at first. "He's not thinking straight. He forgets everything. I'm tired, Diane. I didn't marry a project. She closed the laptop the second she saw me. Didn't say a word. Just stood up and walked into the kitchen. That night I checked our shared drawer. Bank statements, insurance folders. Her section was growing. Color-coded tabs, a folder labeled Asset Breakdown, another, Attorney, Initial Draft. The pen inside still warm. She was preparing. I just hadn't been served yet. I didn't say anything, didn't slam the drawer, didn't even breathe too loud. But I knew. That night I didn't sleep. She turned to the wall. I lay flat, eyes open, arms at my sides. Around 3 a.m., I sat up. The closet creaked. I got on my knees and pulled out an old shoebox behind the winter boots. Misk. Inside, tangled cables, an expired passport, and the silver hard drive. Corner dented, dusty, heavier than I remembered. I plugged it into my old laptop. Blue light blinked twice. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I didn't even think. Typed an old gamer tag I hadn't used in years. Nothing. Paused. Then tried the name of a dog I had in college. Capital D. Number 3 for the E. Pressed enter. Click. Green light. I opened the folder. Text file. BTC wallet.txt. My chest went still. I ran the address through a public ledger. Synced. Waited. Felt time slow. Then the number appeared. 147,288,401.52. No sound, no movement. I just sat there. I copied the keys, moved everything to cold storage, twice, encrypted the backups and printed one copy of the seed phrase, burned the paper in the sink, watched the ashes swirl into the drain. By the time she woke up, I was in the kitchen, making coffee. "You're up early," she said. Felt like a good day, to be clear. She didn't ask. She never did. That week she grew colder. Didn't speak unless spoken to. Stopped wearing her ring. Started locking her phone. One afternoon I caught her browsing condos. She closed the tab when I entered the room. That Friday she asked me to sit, on the couch, like a client. She handed me a typed letter. "You should stay with your brother for a bit. I need space. I don't think this is working anymore." I read the first few lines. Didn't finish. "Understood," I said. She looked surprised, almost disappointed, like she expected me to beg. I didn't. I packed a bag, took my meds, slipped the drive into my jacket pocket. She watched from the hallway. "This isn't personal," she said flatly. "I just don't see a future here." I looked around once. The couch we bought together, the art she picked, the framed photo of our honeymoon, tilted on the shelf. I straightened the frame, turned off the light, and left. She never asked if I remembered the password, never thought to. She thought I walked out with nothing. She had no idea I left with everything. She handed me the divorce papers in a padded envelope. No words. No eye contact. Just left it on the table near the coffee I hadn't finished. Her lawyer was behind her. He gave me the kind of nod you give to a stranger who just lost everything. I opened it after they left. There was a sticky note inside. "I hope you find what you're looking for," she'd written. And underneath it, the list. Itemized division of property, requests for spousal support, immediate vacancy of the house, pending evaluation of digital assets. She had circled that last part. I read every line. Slowly. Then I stood up, walked to the sink, and poured the rest of the coffee down the drain. Not out of emotion. Just a gesture. Something to do with my hands. That night I moved into my sister's basement, slept on the couch the first few nights, woke up disoriented every morning, still healing from the surgery, still pretending none of this was happening. The hard drive was in a storage box I hadn't touched in years. It took 3 days to find it. I sat at my sister's kitchen table and stared at the dented metal case. plugged it in with a cheap USB adapter. Watched the light blink. Nothing happened. The memory came not as a number but as a sentence. Something I used to say in college, a joke no one else understood. I typed it in. The drive unlocked. I opened the file labeled oldwallet.dat. The client loaded. Outdated interface. A balance. 2.35 BTC. The number didn't register. I refreshed, checked again. It wasn't a glitch. I opened a browser, searched the current exchange rate, and sat there, not breathing. Over $100 million. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even smile. I just closed the lid, disconnected the drive, and placed it in the drawer. The next morning, she called. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again. This time, she left a message. I need to come by to get the rest of my stuff. Her tone was different, casual, soft. She came that evening. I stayed upstairs. My sister let her in, watched her go through the boxes in the guest room. She walked around slowly, eyes scanning more than just belongings. Before leaving, she knocked on the bedroom door. "I hope you're doing okay," she said through the wood. "Really?" I didn't answer. That weekend, her lawyer sent an email. Subject: Asset disclosure request. He wanted to know about all holdings, liquid and digital. I didn't respond. The next week, I got a court notice. Emergency petition for asset evaluation. She claimed I'd been dishonest, that I had concealed substantial value. My lawyer was calm. They're fishing. They don't have proof yet. But they were trying. A few days later, she showed up at my sister's house, unannounced. "I just wanted to check on him," she said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "He hasn't returned my things. I'm worried he's unstable." My sister didn't let her in, but the damage was done. By evening, I had 3 missed calls from relatives. One voicemail asked if I needed professional help. I stayed silent, replied to no one. At the next hearing, her lawyer used that incident, claimed I was isolating myself to avoid accountability. They projected my online activity on a screen in court. "Note the irregular logins," the expert said. "There's evidence of intentional obfuscation." They made it sound sinister. The judge asked if I was capable of managing my assets responsibly. I looked him in the eye. Yes. He looked down, scribbled something. After court, I stopped by a sandwich place I used to go to. The owner recognized me. "Heard about the case," he said. "Hope it's not true." I just nodded, didn't correct him. That night, I opened the drawer with the printed rebuttal, took it out, reread the timeline, the dates, the bank receipts, the dormant wallet history, then put it back. My lawyer called again. "They're going for emergency injunction, full transfer of assets into a court-controlled trust." He paused. "They think they've already won." I said nothing. But that night I didn't sleep. I went through backups, old email threads. One of them mentioned a name. Someone from the early days of Bitcoin forums. Someone who had once verified my wallet keys back when I first set it up. If he was still around, he could authenticate the provenance. I made the call. It rang 5 times before someone picked up. "Lucas?" the voice asked. That was all I needed to hear. The next morning, I forwarded his declaration to my lawyer, with metadata, logs, IP signatures from 2011. The court hadn't seen it yet, but it was ready. The Queen hadn't seen the night coming. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Just 2 rows of benches, no press, just Lear lawyer, mine, and a few faces pretending not to judge. She wore light gray, minimal makeup, no expression. The judge asked one question. "Do you believe your ex-husband intentionally concealed assets acquired during the marriage?" Her answer came fast. "I believe he used our shared savings to undergo a surgery that resulted in this windfall. And yes, he kept that from me." She glanced at the judge, then at the clerk, with the face of someone who'd practiced every word. Her lawyer added, "We argue that the wealth was only accessible because of the surgery, which was paid entirely with community funds." The moment his memory returned, the asset became real, and his silence, strategic. The room went quiet. My attorney spoke firm and measured. "There's no precedent for treating a pre-owned hard drive as speculative investment, let alone shared property, based on potential memory retrieval." But I wasn't really listening anymore. She sat with her hands folded gently like she was praying. She caught my eye briefly and mouthed, "You did this." I looked down. The judge requested time to review. 24 hours. The next day we returned. She looked more fragile now. Had swapped heels for flats. Played exhaustion. "I stayed with him during the worst," she told the judge. "He couldn't remember simple things. I managed the bills. I watched over him. I prayed for him. Then, he remembers some password and suddenly disappears with millions?" I could see the effect land. The judge shifted slightly. My attorney remained calm. "None of that, while emotionally compelling, alters the legal structure of property ownership." The ruling came at noon. The drive and its contents were ruled as individual property, acquired and forgotten before the marriage. The court acknowledged her role in his recovery, but found no grounds for post-marital compensation. She didn't look at me. Outside, her lawyer said something to her, low and fast. Her face didn't move. I walked to my car, sat, stared at the dash for a long time. The wire transfer screen was already open. The number was small compared to what I now had, but it matched almost to the cent what we had in our joint account the day I paid for the surgery. I hovered over the button. For a second, I almost closed it. Then I remembered her words on the porch. "I didn't marry you to be your nurse, or your accountant." I hit send, no message, no note. 2 days later, a mutual friend told me she'd received it. She thought it was a mistake, he said. Then she cried for a long time. I never replied to her calls after that. 3 months passed. One morning I walked into a branch in Austin and closed the last shared account we'd ever had. There was still a few cents of interest. I withdrew it in cash, put the receipt in an envelope. The teller asked if I wanted anything else, and I just said, "I'm good." I moved out of state 6 months later. Not for safety, just silence. I bought a place near the coast. Nothing extravagant. 2 bedrooms, clean light, a deck that catches the breeze right before sunset. It's quiet here. You can hear your own thoughts. Filter them. Every morning, I walk to the same coffee shop. They know my name, not my story. I like it that way. I read more now. Classics mostly. I'm relearning things I once rushed through. Sometimes I forget I'm a millionaire. The account sits there. I don't touch most of it. Just enough for comfort. I spent years chasing stability. Now it just exists. One evening I got a letter forwarded from my old address. No return name, just the city. Inside was a note. Short, apologetic. Her handwriting. She didn't ask for anything. Didn't say she missed me. Just wrote, "You were right, I was just afraid." I folded the paper, slid it into the drawer beside my passport. Didn't reply. A week later, I transferred $168,000 into her account. The amount she had put into our savings, adjusted for inflation with a little extra. No message, just closure. The next day, I deleted her contact. Not out of anger, just maintenance. There's a trail near my house that cuts through the cliffs and ends at a wooden overlook. I walk it twice a week. No headphones, just wind and footfall. At the edge, I stop. The ocean doesn't care who you were. And that's the peace I was looking for. She called me reckless for spending our savings. Turns out it was the best investment we ever made. The gentleman's revenge isn't loud, but it's always personal. If this felt personal, Make it personal. Subscribe now, and don't miss tomorrow's story.